Okay, so I realized that because we're now all on Zoom, so I can actually use elements of my PowerPoints from class, from my high school classes, and enhance our learning here. We're not going to do everything on the PowerPoint, but there are some things that I wanted to go over, later on, and this will come in handy. And I think we've been making an effort in yeshiva to people who are able to turn on their cameras, then that's definitely appreciated just because it makes human interaction much better simulated. So I appreciate that. Okay, so let's start off with a review because it's been a while. A review of the main theory of Koheles and the approach that we're taking, and then I have a specific mission for today, and that's why I sent the Word document. So. Okay, so grand theory of Koheles. So this was my theory here, and it's based on the first two psukim. Havel havalim amar Koheles, havel havalim hakol havel, and we're translating havel as futile, with a nothingness vibe, but like futile in the sense that like you didn't get what you thought you were going to get, or you didn't achieve your goal. And then he says ma yisron la'adam b'chol amaloshi amotakas hashemesh, and yisron is the other operational term here. Okay, so I'll explain what it is in a second. But this is, I think I described this verbally last time, but this is my theory of Koheles. Watch this. Okay, namely that Havel Havlim Amar Koheles, Havel Havlim Hakol Havel, that is the answer to the question that is being asked by the person who is asking. Sorry, that's the answer to the question that the person is asking. Ma Yisron La'adam L'chol Amaloshi Amal Tachas Hashemesh. In other words, if you are striving to look for Yisron, and toiling to look for Yisron, then you will conclude Hakol Havel. But if you're not striving to find Yisron, then you will not reach that conclusion, Hakol Havel. So quick review of what those terms are, and then we'll get underway. So my theory of the book is the entire thing is about man's quest for Yisron, and Yisron is a what I call a placeholder term. Literally means something more, but it's basically anything that you'll say, all I need is blank, and then I'll be happy, or it'll solve all my problems, or my life is complete. And by definition, because you're looking for something more than reality has to offer, so then you can't get it. And when you fail to get it, because you put all of your hopes into what it would bring you, and those hopes didn't come to fruition, then by definition, you will feel it was all pointless, it was all worthless. And that's the approach I'm taking to the book, which is that he's not actually saying that everything is Hevel. I think we raised the question earlier that, Hashem, well, we see it this week in this week's Parsha. Hashem says everything is Tov Ma'od, so it's not an objective statement. It's a statement that it's a conclusion that comes from someone who is striving for something that he couldn't really get, which is this Yisron. Okay, so that's like my main theory of Koheles in terms of what it's about. And then the method he uses, again, this is all review still, is last time we read through like the bulk of the book. So the whole middle part of the book is exploring the different ways in which people seek Yisron, and then showing why they're chasing a fantasy, and why they're going to conclude that everything is Havel. And in the end, he reaches the conclusion that censorship bar here, and that a person should fear God and keep his commandments. The reason why it's censored, this is to allude to the fact that we said that, obviously the conclusion is more than just the last sentences of the book. In other words, when Chazal said that they almost banned Koheles, but then they kept it because of the last sentences, it doesn't just mean that you can skip the whole middle part of the book and read the end and then get the point of the book. There must be something that reading through and learning through the entire middle of the book does that transforms your relationship to the ideas at the end. But we're going to have to go through the book to find that out. And that's the part that I really have never gotten a chance to like fully explore in my high school classes, which I want to do this year. Which I have my theory, obviously, but I haven't gotten to like fully flesh it out. So that's our review of the overview of Koheles. Any questions on that? Yeah, Joe?
Yeah, just to clarify a point. So when he says that everything is Havel, he doesn't actually mean everything is Havel. He only means everything is Havel if your goal is Yisra.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's how and again, just to clarify where that came from is, first of all, the fact that at the end of the book he says that Es Elokim Yirav as mitvosav shemor kizekol ha'adam, certainly that's not Hevel. Now you can say, well, that's not Tachas Hashemesh, that's Kodem Shemesh or whatever. I'm not such a fan of that argument. And the other place where this is coming, so in other words, there has to be something that is not Hevel. And also, again, creation is good. So how do I square that with his statement that Hakol Hevel? So that's why I'm saying that that's from the incorrect perspective of choosing Yisron. And then the second thing that led me to find this, which I mentioned last time, or when we went through the theory, was that if you look through the Sefer and you categorize all the themes, you'll find that certain themes he'll talk about in a Hevel way and in a this is really good way. So how can you make sense of that? So it must be that the same things you can relate to in a way where you're seeking Yisron, and therefore you'll find that those things are Hevel. And then if you relate to it in a way that's not seeking Yisron, then you'll find that it really is good. So that's like the support for, or the place where my theory emerged from. Yeah.
Okay, and just one more point.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Joe. And after
yeah, very, very subtle.
Yeah.
When we're referring to Yisron, are you going to use the word Yisron, or do you have an English translation?
So I am going to use the term Yisron because part of what I think Koheles is trying to do is, I'm sorry, let me back up. Not part of what Koheles is trying to do. Part of what Shlomo HaMelech does in his books is he creates a jargon, or he creates a terminology. He coins terms because he wants you to see the world through these terms. So like in Mishlei, that is, all of the terms for fools and chachamim, that he introduces these terms, and by immersing yourself in these terms and constantly thinking about them, you start to see reality through those terms. That's one reason I don't want to translate it. And number two is because the most accurate translation we have for it is more, but that doesn't quite capture it, because in English, the word more like necessitates something that comes after it, and like it's the whole concept of Yisron is he's taking like Yoser or Mosar, and he's turning it into like an entity, and like I give the analogy of like bracha. Like if you said, when we use the term bracha, like in English we say it's blessing, but in the Torah, when you say like God gives us many brachos, then bracha could refer to wealth, it could refer to health, it could refer to like family, it could refer to knowledge, and the whole like the whole versatility of the term is the fact that it's a placeholder term and that it could apply to many different things. So that's another reason why I want to preserve the Hebrew. Okay, Isaiah.
Does your theory have in it or does the book address? I guess I don't know exactly what my question is, but like, what is, I guess, the state of a person who is not seeking Yisron? Is that part of this theory?
So like, the theory, theoretically, it's possible for someone to not seek Yisron, but Koheles' view seems to be that this is part of the human condition.
Or, there's definitely an idea. It seems like Koheles is saying like you should try to not seek Yisron in situations. So like, what other option is there? I guess that's what I'm not seeing.
So that's part of the censored conclusion, okay, which is that he presents us with this problem, and presumably there is a solution to it. And the question is, if this is really hardwired into human nature, so how do you get out of it? And somewhere the answer is in the book.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's my theory. Okay, so if not, then we're in big trouble. And there are approaches, by the way, that I think there is a viable way to learn the Sefer where you cannot escape the search for Yisron. Okay, Rabbi Chait has like 50 or 60 shiurim on Koheles. I think maybe 80, maybe 100, because he's done it many times, and each one is like a series, so there's like the one in the 70s, there's the one in like 82, there's like the purpose of Sefer Koheles, there's all these different series. And so in one of them, and I don't remember which one it is, and I listened to this so long ago that I don't know if this is even an accurate like summary of the conclusion, or just like a havamina. But I remember the notion at one point that he said that man is built with, he didn't have this terminology of Yisron, but it was a similar idea, that man is built with this quest for a type of happiness that he can't get in the physical world, because if he would be totally satisfied in the physical world, he would never seek chachma. So the psychological inability to have this type of happiness, according to that idea, is necessary to be able to invest your energy in the pursuit of chachma. So according to that idea, again, I don't know if that was a conclusion or a Havmin or whatever, but that would be an example of a way to learn Koheles where you can't undo Yisron, your search for Yisron, and you're stuck with it, but it's by design. My theory is different, but I guess we'll have to find out as we learn the book. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go on to the mission of the night, I wanted to give an example. I've been reading. Those who follow my content know that I've been doing Marcus Aurelius. My favorite Stoic is actually Epictetus, and I haven't been doing him it doesn't lend itself to the WhatsApp format. So I've been doing Chazara on his discourses. Okay, and this morning when I was reading it, then I found a perfect description of, or a perfect example of Yisron. So this is a 3-slide thing. Okay, so he's talking about a slave. Okay, so he says, the slave, and he's speaking from experience because he used to be a slave. All right. The slave wishes to be set free immediately. Why? Do you think that he wishes to pay money to the collectors of 20ths? Don't know what that means. No, but because he imagines that hitherto, through not having obtained this, he is hindered and unfortunate. If I shall be set free, immediately it is all happiness. I care for no man. I speak to all as an equal, and like to them, I go where I choose. I come from any place I choose, and I go where I choose. So that's what the slave wants. Then he is set free, and forthwith, having no place where he can eat, he looks for some man to flatter, someone with whom he shall sup. Then he either works with his body and endures the most dreadful things, and if he can obtain a manger, he falls into a slavery much worse than his former slavery. Or even if he has become rich, being a man without any knowledge of what is good, he loves some little girl, and in his happiness laments and desires to be a slave again. He says, what evil did I suffer in my state of slavery? Another clothed me, another supplied me with shoes, another fed me, another looked after me in sickness, and I did only a few services for him. But now a wretched man, what things I suffer, being a slave of many instead of to one. But however, he says, if I shall acquire rings, then I shall live most prosperously and happily. I have no idea like what rings he's talking about. I assume it's just like jewelry. I don't know. He says, first, in order to acquire these rings, he submits to that which he is worthy of. Then when he has acquired them, it is again all the same. Then he says, if I shall be engaged in military service, I am free from all evils. He obtains military service. He suffers as much as a flogged slave, and nevertheless he asks for a second service and a third. After this, when he has put the finishing stroke to his career and has become a senator, then he becomes a slave by entering into the assembly. Then he serves the finer and more splendid slavery. Okay, so his rhetorical point here, this is part of a larger text about how it's actually it is related to Koheles, but he says if you go up to Caesar, if you go up to a person and you tell him you're a slave, he'll say, what do you mean a slave? Like my mom was a free woman and my dad was a free man. And then like Epictetus goes and basically says, well, first of all, who's to say that your parents weren't slaves? Maybe you're all slaves. And he like builds this idea of slavery as being like a much more expansive concept than the way we think of it as like chattel slavery, But I thought this was a really good just walkthrough of the cycle of chasing Yisron, because at every step of the way, he wants this thing. He says, if I get the thing, then it'll make me happy. And then either that thing doesn't bring him the happiness that he thought because intrinsically he can't get it, or because there's some external thing that thwarts his ability to get it, or it's self-defeating. And those are the three things that we mentioned earlier in the book. So thought that was a good like walkthrough. Yeah, Joe?
Yeah, have you read Siddhartha?
I did. And I when I read it, I didn't like it. And I don't remember why. I remember thinking, oh, this is like right up my alley. And I remember really not liking it. But maybe it's time for a reread.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I got it in the book closet over there.
Yeah, similar thematically in a lot of ways.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I remember thinking he was pulling a fast one, but I don't remember what it was. Yeah. Okay. So any questions on the review of the main themes of Koheles? All right. So now let's go to the project of the night. Okay. So you don't have to open. Oh, by the way, I can't see the chat. Oh, yeah. So I got a chat here from Tamar about the Yisron. I understand the definition of something more than what reality has to offer, but is it always the case that this is something that makes a person feel, if I have it, I'll finally be happy? I don't know if I fully grasped the question. I don't know if you're asking like specifically happy, or let me answer it this way, is like, even from that example, sometimes it's not that if I get this, I'll be happy. It's that if I get this, then I will be at peace. Or if I get this, I will be free of pain. Or if I get this, then like it'll solve a particular problem. But the feeling is one of like ultimate happiness. It might not be conceived of in like bliss terms or like, like riding waves of pleasure terms, but it's like something that occupies that finality state. It's the type of happiness. You ever heard? Question for anyone. You ever heard Aristotle's definition of happiness? It's his. I don't know if this is his final definition, but he says happiness is the end at which all things aim. Okay, and the way that Mortimer Adler put it, and I'll type this into the chat because it's better in text. Just one second. So he says that sentence is impossible to answer. I want to be happy so that blank. In other words, because if you ask the person, well, why, ultimately it's going to boil down to I want to be happy. So he said that happiness is the state at which all things end. So that's different than like our notion of happiness of like all smiles and like Disneyland, or whatever your vision of happiness is. It's a happiness of like the end of all things. And that's why, by the way, hold on, let me just get this book from this shelf here. Oh no, hold on.
What's with the paper background?
What's with the paper background?
Just noticed it. Is that like a Zoom background?
It's not. It's a white. It's a white sheet. I don't know what kind of material it's made out of, and that's because when I first started doing YouTube videos, people said that people don't like to see anything behind you, or unless it's books like Yaakov Eiferman that makes you look scholarly. But I don't have a big enough apartment to only display books behind me, and I can't get anything out of the way. So I paid money to buy this white thing. I thought then that would make me happy.
It looks very nice.
Are you happy now?
Thank you very much. Anyway, so this is the book I told you about that I got the theory from, my own theory of Koheles, which is the Happiness, Death, and the Remainder of Life by Jonathan Lear. And he argues based on this Aristotle thing. He says, so Aristotle's making this logical argument that happiness is the end at which all things aim, and the assumption of Aristotle is that thing exists. And the assumption of Freud is maybe that's neurotic. Like maybe it's just a drive that you have for endless like pursuit of this thing. And then in his Remainder of Life part, which I still haven't read, then apparently like he comes up with his answer to that to reconcile the two. So I don't know. Zev, you had asked to borrow this, and I told you that I wanted to reread it over Sukkot. I didn't end up rereading it over Sukkot. So if you're in the neighborhood, if you want to borrow it, you can. I do want to reread it at some point, but yeah. Okay, so here's the mission for the night, and I'm going to share. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. So Yisron, I guess are we giving a reason why it's inherently unattainable, or we're assuming that?
No, that's part of what we have to learn from the. I'm giving a surface level reason, is a logical argument, which is if Yisron is more than what reality has to offer, then by definition, then it's not going to get you what you think, like that is its very definition, like if you wanted to, okay, going back to what Joe was saying about asking for a translation for Yisron, a close term, I guess like the sister of Yisron, okay, would be the English word fantasy, but I don't think that's a good word because I think it's too all encompassing, but like the definition of fantasy is that it's something that's not realistic, so that's the that's the argument we've given for why Yisron won't make you happy. The argument we haven't given is like, what is the nature of Yisron seeking within the person's psyche such that they encounter this problem again and again and again, like what makes the person seek Yisron, like what is Yisron as a psychological phenomenon, not just as a like logical definition as a term, that we haven't explained.
Yeah. Meaning like you, why can't you just tell a person like, if you're trying to get more out of the thing than what it actually is, then you're not going to be happy with it.
Right.
Like why can't you just be like, oh, okay, so I'll think about whether my assessment makes sense or not,
Yes. Right. Exactly. And we're going to see this through Koheles, but we see this in reality that it doesn't work. Like if you just tell a person to, live in line with reality, like it's not that simple. It's not a switch, right? And that's kind of part of the quest of Koheles to figure out why is that the case.
Wait, it's not? You can't just tell someone live in line with
We'll have to talk
reality?
about this later, Isaac. We have to have the reality talk. Okay, so here is the quest, or not the quest. I got the word quest in my head. Here is the mission for this evening. Okay, last time we did a read through of Koheles, and we noted that basically from the end of the Hakdama, which ends on pasuk 11, from there until the time poem, like there's a time for this and a time for that, there's this one section which I call the experiment. Okay, this is where he speaks in the first person and says all of the stuff that he tried to do. And I mentioned last time that it seems like this experiment had certain phases where he was trying out certain things and then got certain results, and then tried something else and got to other results. As you can see from the text here, it's all one block. Okay, there's a psucha or stuma before this, and then there's one after this. So our mission is going to be to try to divide up the experiment into its phases. That's step one. And then step two is to define what was he seeking in each phase, and then what went wrong, or like what did he find, and then why did he pursue the next phase after that. Okay, and the reason I have my idea of how the phases are broken up, but I've seen different people divide it up into different ways. For example, there are certain phases that you can argue are really one phase and not two, or there's certain psukim that you can argue are introductory or commenting on the entire thing, or you can argue that they're part of the experiment in particular. So what we're going to do is like this: is we're going to read it through and translate it. If you want to read it in English, I'm going to translate everything as I go. But sometimes, when I said this last time, when you are reading for the macro, like for the big picture, it's often easier to think big picture when you do it in your native language. So if you want to do it in English, then it's on the second page of the document, and you can follow along in English as I do Hebrew. But I'm going to do it in Hebrew because I want to point out all the subtleties of the terminology now, which we didn't do last time. Okay. The other reason why I sent this as a Word document is this will allow us, let's say we wanted to say that there's a phase that starts here, so we can make our own paragraph. And that way, as we're talking about it, we can mess around with it, or we can highlight, and that way we can just have a visual reminder of where we are. Okay, that's the plan. Okay, so let's go through, and this is going to take us, I think, today and Thursday, because it's not long, but the translation will be a little dicey here. Okay, so and again, the English is there. I'm just going to translate it just so we could talk about the ambiguities here. Ani Koheles, Haisi Melech al Yisrael b'Yushalayim. I am Koheles. I was king over Israel in Yerushalayim. V'nasati es libi lidrosh v'lasur b'chochma. Okay, here we get our first ambiguity. Our first two. I set my lave. Now again, lave is either mind or emotions. Okay, here we're going to assume it's mind because he says b'chochma, but it's not so simple. Lidrosh, to seek out, v'lasur, and to explore, I guess, to probe. Ba'chochma. Okay, how do you translate lidrosh v'lasur ba'chochma?
Like with chachma?
So
Like
one possibility
using
is with
chachma?
chachma. What's the other possibility?
About Chachma?
About
On
chachma. Exactly. So is chachma the thing he's using to explore, or is it the thing he's investigating? And that makes a big difference, right? Because if he's evaluating chachma itself, so then we now know what the subject of the first part of the experiment is. But does that imply that he wasn't using chachma to explore it? And if he's saying he explored with chachma, so then what does that say about like the conclusions that he reaches? Okay, but it gets a little bit more difficult because look at the rest of the pasuk. Lidrosh v'lasur ba'chachma al kol asher nasa tachas hashmayim, upon or over or in regards to everything that is done under the heavens. Hu inyan ra, it is two ambiguous terms. Okay, inyan, we know inyan in like rabbinic Hebrew is extremely vague. How do you guys usually translate inyan? Topic, right?
Matter.
Yeah, topic.
Matter.
Thingy is my favorite translation of it. Matter, right? Inyan could be from actually, you know what? Let me actually, I deliberately don't want to go to the Mefarshim this time. We're gonna get bogged down in the Mefarshim if we do that.
Rebbe Shemus?
Yeah.
From the fact that it says the pasuk or the sentence says all kol asher and whatnot. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you say that's the object of what he's doing? And the Bach Chachma is qualifying how he's doing it, meaning with Chachma?
Yeah. The only problem is what he says going forward. You'll see why when we get to where chapter 2 begins. Okay.
Got it.
That's a valid question linguistically, though. Okay, inyan could be matter. It could also be topic. It can also be preoccupation. Okay, like involvement, and or task. I've seen some of Arshim say. And Ra, as we said, is very ambiguous. Is it evil? Is it bad? Is it harmful? So it is an inyan Ra, Nasan Elokim, that God gave Livnei Adam to mankind, la'anos bo. And the la'anos might or might not be related to inyan. So la'anos is either to be involved with, to answer for, or la'anos is like inui, like to be afflicted with. So really hard to read this pasuk. I mean, is it saying God gave a painful task to man to afflict him with? That makes God sound like sadistic. Or is it saying that he gave this to man to be involved with, in which case, like, what is bad about that involvement? Okay, but then he goes on, and I want to go to the end of this first chapter here because answer Isaiah's question, or strengthen his question, or no, answer it. Whatever, show that there is a question. Ra'isias kol ma'asim, I saw all of the deeds, actions, shanasu takas shemesh, that were done under the sun. Meaning kol hevel ru'us ruach, and everything is hevel, and a ru'us ruach comes from either the word breaking, a breaking of the spirit, or Robert Alter, who we've talked about in my Mishlei, I think he translates it as shepherding the wind, which I think is at least poetically cool, and is also fits into the grazing on the wind. I forgot the exact thing, like the word like roet son, or like mireh, like pasturing. So imagine if you're a sheep, and instead of like munching on grass, you're munching on wind. That's a good mushel for chasing after Yisron, because you're actually like trying to get sustenance from nothing. So we'll have to decide what this is. If ru'us ruach means a breaking of spirit, then my understanding of it is it's a term for the pain of the hevel letdown. In other words, hevel is, oh, you know what? I actually have a just 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing for 1 second. I forgot. I have a crude animation of this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this was part of something that I actually skipped, but I'll display it here, even though this is out of sequence. All right. So here comes, ready for another perk of my beautiful of my PowerPoint. So I am not an artist, but I made some crude animations of various things in Koheles here. So this is oops, sorry, not this slide. This one after this. So this is our character that we call Koheles Man. Okay, and this is him frantically striving after Yisron. Okay, Yisron is that glowing thing in the distance that he can't get. And Amel, b'chol amalo she'amol takas hashemesh, is the pursuit of that Yisron. Okay, and then when he gets to Yisron, he finds it's all hevel. Okay, it didn't get in what he wanted, and then here is my understanding here. The pain of the letdown is the ru'us ruach, and like in all the commercials for pain medication, then it's represented by like lightning bolts. So ru'us ruach, so there's two things, and it's a subtle difference. Hevel is the feeling, that sinking feeling of it was futile and it was and I got nothing out of it. Ru'us ruach is like the sharp pain of the conflict between the clash between your expectations and the reality. In other words, the reality you're finding is the hevel, but the clash of the expectation is the ru'us ruach. is the breaking of spirit. That's how I understand it. And then yagia, the exertion, is the feeling of repeated, that my whole life is nothing but a series of these frustrations, of this rus ruach again and again and again and again. So that's my pictorial representation of how I understand those terms. So if you need something to keep in your mind for when we read those, but again, I'm open to different interpretation of that there. Okay, so back to the experiment. Okay, so we were at, oh yeah, Mu'uvas lo yuchal liskon, v'chesron lo yuchal himanos. What is twisted cannot be fixed. What is lacking cannot be counted. Dibarti ani im libi lemor. I spoke with my heart, saying, and again, is this heart or is this mind? We don't know. Ani, I. Hine higdalti v'osafti chachma al kol asher haya lefanai al Yerushalayim. V'libi ra'ach harbe chachma v'das. I have amassed and aggrandized my with chachma upon everything that is before me over Yerushalayim, and my mind has seen a lot of chachma and da'as. And I set my heart to know chachma, the da'as holelos, and to have knowledge of holelos is like wildness or debauchery. The sichlus, sichlus here is spelled with a sin, as if it means intelligence, but it seems like a lot of the Mefarshim learn it to mean sichlus with a samech, which is foolishness. Either way, it's unclear from the pasuk, because if you say it is foolishness, then it pairs well with holilos, with wildness. But if you say it's intelligence, then it pairs well with chachma. So not sure what it is. Yadati, I knew shagamzehu rayon ruach, that this is also a rayon ruach, which I'm taking as a synonym for us ruach, same shoresh. Ki barov chachma rav kaas v'yosif daas yosif machov, that in an abundance of wisdom, or with more wisdom comes more anger, and one who increases knowledge increases pain. Now, not to put you on the spot, Isaiah, but did you catch what I was getting at about why Pasuk 13 is more ambiguous than it was when you asked about it?
No, I did not.
Okay, so Isaiah's argument from 13 was, I'll repeat it, and then anyone else can answer it if you can. Isaiah's question was, isn't it mashma that since it says lidrosh lasur ba chachma al kol asher nasa tachas hashemayim, so that means he's searching with chachma, and the object of his investigation is everything that is done under the heavens. So that was what Isaiah asked, and I said linguistically that makes sense, but then I said if you read on, it seems not. So based on what we just read, do you see the how this makes the ambiguity more?
Yeah, well, now he's talking about chachma as the hevel kind of thing.
Yeah, now it sounds like he's actually investigating chachma itself, right? I'll read that part again, starting with 16. I spoke with my heart, saying, I have become great and amassed chachma over everything. Al kol asher haya lefanai al Yerushalayim. I mistranslated that, by the way. I think over anyone who came before me in Yerushalayim, meaning I got more chachma than anyone who came before me in Yerushalayim, and my mind has seen a lot of chachma and das, and I set my mind to know chachma and to know das and to know wildness and foolishness, and I knew that this too was a frustration spirit, because the more chachma you get, the more angry you get, and the more knowledge you get, then the more pain you get. So it sounds like he's actually investigating chachma.
Well, I guess I would say if he's investigating chachma, then he's also using chachma.
Right.
It's kind of one and the same.
Right, which is going to be kind of an intrinsic problem with the whole experiment, right? But I guess that's the problem with any introspective experiment, is you're using the apparatus to examine the thing that you're examining, or to using the apparatus to examine the apparatus,
Right.
Yeah. But you see what I mean, though, in terms of like this phase of the experiment sounds like a great part of it was actually like trying to like investigate chachma itself.
I had a question on pasuk, also on pasuk 13.
Yeah.
So what is the Inyan Ra that he's referring to? Is it the experimentation that he's doing, or is it something else?
Okay, good question. What do you guys say?
Could be kol shenasa techas hashmayim.
Right. So what is that in relation to this experiment here, or is that just a general statement about the world?
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of the structure of the puzzle, it is definitely kol asher nasa tachas hashamayim, right? But then who inyan ra? I mean, he's lumping everything into one category and calling it an inyan ra, right? So this is let me actually like just bring this out here, okay? Hold on just a second. Yeah. I think it's fair to say, maybe I'm prejudicing you here. I think it's fair to say that this is one phase of the experiment somewhere in here, because you'll see that this next part is different. And by the way, I think that's why the whoever made the paragraph breaks made it break here. But here's the question I have is, where does the experiment begin? In other words, is this part here the experiment and the first part is an intro? Or is this first part also part of the experiment? Or is it its own phase? You know what I'm saying? Like that's part of Isaiah's, like that's part of the Isaiah's, the answer to Isaiah's question is partly contingent on that, because like, is he saying, Nasati is libi lidosh v'lasur b'chachma al kol asher nasa tachas hashmayim hu inyan ra nasa elokim libnei adam la'anosbo? Is that I looked for this and I concluded this, and that's like phase one. And this is an elaboration of phase one, like that's all like part of his conclusion, and then this is a new phase? Or is this first part like the introduction to the experiment, and then this part of 16 through 18 is phase one of the experiment? If you see what I'm saying.
I kind of want to start the experiment at Yud Daled.
At Yud Daled. Let me see what that looks like here. So like that?
Yeah, because at Yud Daled, he's beginning to look outwardly from himself, meaning Gimel, he's stating, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And Yud Daled, it seems like now he's doing an action of seeing.
Right. That's, I think, why I'm tempted to view it as part of the experiment, because he says, the way I'm looking at it, just to show you the contrast here, is, so I'm Koheles, and I made this my mission, and this is what I found. And then you'll say, but Koheles, like, what, like, on what basis? And he'll say, well, I saw all of this, that it was all Hevel and Rus Ruach, and that things can't be fixed. And now I will tell you how I reached that conclusion. And then he starts walking you through his experiment. That's how I'm seeing it.
This breakup looks like seems the most natural to me.
Yeah. I mean, look, let's put it this way. There is definitely a negative conclusion here. Well, let's put it this way. Negative conclusions are over here and here. Whereas process statements are here and here. And then over here, you also have, this is a conclusion statement, and this is a process statement. So that's why this breakup, I don't know, Isaac, if that's what, if that's expressing the intuitive thing for you about why this is the way it is, but I think like this definitely seems like its own thing to me. And then because this is broken up in this way, and because this is the new intro, I feel like this is all part of the introduction to the experiment, and not part of the experiment itself. I feel like he's not really giving any arguments here as to why it is. Whereas here he says it's a Rayon Ruach, and then he explains why. Ki barov chachma rov kas Yosef das Yosef machov. Excuse me.
Yeah. Also the in this breakup, the first part is all very general.
Yeah.
And then
right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Kol asher nasa takas hashamayim and takas hashemesh. Exactly. Yeah.
Another question.
Sure.
I guess it's just confusion actually. I really don't understand what move Oslo you call this one.
Okay, good.
You call Himnanas is doing anywhere in this. Doesn't seem related at all.
So I'll tell you my theory about this. Or actually, I mean, I'm not going to tell you my theory quite yet. Anyone have a thought on what the Muvas Lo Yuchal Liskon is and Chesron Lo Yuchal Himanos? I mean, it's very Muvas Lo Yuchal Liskon. I mean, that we can at least understand, right? What is twisted cannot be fixed. I mean, we can at least understand the words. What is not there cannot be counted. Seems like duh. Like obviously, if it's not there, you can't count it. You know. So like, what is he getting at here? Anyone have
Off
any
the
theories?
cuff. Off the
Yeah.
cuff. It sounds like it's saying if something's nature is like fundamentally in a different direction than the way that you are trying to make it be,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna work because that's not how it is.
Right.
That's Muvas Lo Yuchal Liskon.
Right.
And I'd say V'chesron Lo Yuchal Lihimanos means if you're trying to get something that just like actually isn't present, you won't be able to do that.
Okay, good. So what does it sound like he's talking about? What's the subject of Tesvav then? Based on that.
Yisron.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it sounds like it's not going to sound like this afterwards, by the way. It sounds like I'm just saying every single pasuk is about Yisron, but you got to realize that, remember, the first 11 psukim was an intro, okay, to the entire book. And according to some, as I mentioned in times past, that part wasn't even like, either Koheles wrote it as like a summary, or like if you're familiar with academic papers, like that's the abstract, okay? And then this is where he's actually stating how he arrived at it. So it is a separate statement. And I think this is where he's saying that this is the Muvas Lo Yuchal Liskon. I think your intuition is correct, Isaac, is that he's saying that this is part of human nature. In other words, Muvas is not like, if you take a paper clip and you bend it, then there's no way to bend it back. Like there are things in the world that if you twist them, then you can fix them. He's not talking about that. He's saying, like Isaac said, which is if something is intrinsically crooked, then it can't be fixed. If it was designed that way, and if something is not there, it definitively cannot register an account, and that is expressing this thing in man, that man is built to chase Yisron, and there's nothing you could do about it, at least at this point in the Sefer. And the thing he's trying to get, he can't get because it's not there. And I think this also explains Pasuk Yud Gimel, because now it shows why he's blaming it on God, right? This is Inyan Ra that God has given man to afflict him with, that God implanted this in man, this Inyan Ra, which you could say, again, is a bad occupation, a bad task, a bad involvement. And he did it, la'anosbo, to afflict man. Now, I don't think Koheles is saying that Hashem is vindictive, but he's saying, like, look, if you saw a the image. Okay, let me think if this imagery is appropriate. The imagery that I use a lot to describe human beings is and no offense to anyone in the room who's a human being, but this is all of us. But the cymbal monkeys that you wind them up and they like just clash the cymbals. I don't know if I've ever actually even seen one, but like on I think there's one in Toy Story, in the original Toy Story. But like those little the monkeys, or any wind up toy, I guess. So like if you picture a cymbal monkey being wound up and then put right in front of a wall, and then it just cymbal crashes and is not moving anywhere, even though its legs are moving, until it runs out of wind up and then just dies. That's like what Koheles is saying that God did with human beings, is he wound them up and then just put them in front of this wall where they think that they're making progress and they're not actually getting anything. And they just do that over and over and over again until they die, So he's not actually blaming God. He's not making a metaphysical statement about God that like God is unjust. Like he does that later on in the book, but he's saying like, why did God create man with this burning need to seek Yisron when all it results in is Inoi, is pain, like it's just not that's it looks like God set man up to fail, basically. I think that's what he's expressing in Yud Gimel.
Like Sisyphus type of thing.
Yeah. I'm saying based on knowing the mushal, but I don't know, like I know there are like Camus and all those theories about Sisyphus. I haven't read them, but yeah, the imagery. Yeah.
According to this breakdown, does that mean that in Yud Gimel he's exploring with Chachma everything, or not necessarily?
Okay, good. So yes, according to this breakdown, I think that's another advantage of this is it allows Isaiah's intuitive grammatical reading to be preserved, which is he's using Chachma to explore everything. And then in phase 1 of the experiment, he's exploring Chachma itself with Chachma. Yeah, that's a good observation. Now, while we're here, I initially had planned for us to go through the entire thing and map it out. I think it's actually going to be more effective if we talk about each phase as we get it. So let's talk about Tes Zayin through Yud Ches. Okay, so why do you think the first thing that Koheles sought was Chachma, thinking that that's going to make him happy?
I mean, I feel like maybe because it's sort of our tradition that it's the thing that makes you happy. Like,
Right.
it's
So
that,
one thing
you know,
is that Shlomo was Jewish, okay, and like definitely according to our value system, then Chachma is like the greatest of human goods, right? That's according to the Kuzari. That's why we that's the first of the Bakashos in the Shemona Esrei, right? And everything else also depends on Chachma, and so that's definitely one possibility. Anyone have another possibility? I think you can get it from the Psukim. Let me make these non-highlighted again. Or if you think about Shlomo. Yeah, go ahead.
he says also all kol asher haya lefane all Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess he was surrounded by Chachma.
Okay, right. So that could be as well that who do we see the Metzudas David when we were doing our first approach that's why he specified B'Yerushalayim in the Hakdama, that it's a city of Chachamim and a city of Chachma. So my answer is, I mean, I don't think the other answer is wrong, but I think that an additional reason for why Shlomo started his investigation with Chachma is that's his thing, right? That's Shlomo Melech's thing. I mean, it's his interest. It's the thing that he wrote. He literally wrote the book on Chachma, Mishle. Okay, but he also, that was his request from Hashem, and that was his claim to fame, is he's the Chacham. And if you were, for example, so in this sense, I don't think it is like, I think you could make an argument aside from the fact that Chachma is such a big thing in Judaism, that he started with this because it's his forte. Like if you are Beethoven, okay, and you suddenly have a philosophical inclination and you want to seek human happiness, where are you going to start? You're going to start with music because you are a genius musician and you're already involved in music, and you might as well max it out, so to speak, and see if it brings you happiness, So, and I'm saying that I think you could get, I guess it depends on how you interpret Hay Lafanai Al Yushalayim, whether you interpret that as Lafanai, like before me, that like Isaiah said that you're surrounded by Chachamim, or if you interpret it the way I translated it the second time, which is I had more Chachma than all of my predecessors because I was the greatest Chacham, and therefore I'm in the best position to test Chachma. And again, these are not mutually exclusive possibilities, Okay, so that's a reasonable thing. Okay, so but then he finds Ki Rov Chachma Rov Kaas V'Yosif Das Yosif Machov. So that's his conclusion. So what we have to ask here, and again, we're going to do this in every phase of the experiment, or try to do this, is what was he seeking, and then what did he find? So what exactly did he discover? What does he mean that Barov Chachma Rov Kaas and Yosif Das Yosif Machov? Why did this not provide him the happiness that he sought? Or why was this not the Yisron that he was looking for, not the Yisron he was looking for? I'm going to just briefly stop sharing the screen for 1 second. Oh, wait, actually, no, I don't have to.
Sorry, what does Machov mean?
Machov is pain. Yosif Das, Yosif Machov. The more Das you get, the more pain you get. Here, you know what? I actually am going to switch. since this PowerPoint has this on here, I might as well put it here. Oh, I forgot I'm going to end at 7:55 because just to give you a break before the next year. Let me ask you a question. Do you want, or first of all, I mean, anyone have any thoughts here? We answered, okay, so we answered 1, we answered 2. Yeah, so we're at 3 now, okay. So I guess let me ask you this. In the next 4 minutes, I can give you an answer, or we can think about it for next time. I'm fine either way.
I'd rather
First
think
one to
about it.
speak.
I prefer to think about it.
You want to think about it? Okay. I didn't hear, what did you say, Yaakov?
Same as Isaac.
Okay. All right. So let's stop here and think about it. Before we end here, though, I just wanted to say, just as a methodology point, because I feel like there's I have a responsibility to point out good methodology points on anything. I don't know how many of you do this, but when you are working to find when you're working through a large text in Tanakh, then I find it helps to put it into a Word document and mess around with highlighters and with paragraph breaks, and then even sometimes going all out with outlinings and bullet points, because again, I guess it depends on how your mind works, but I find that if you can manipulate the text, you can move it into seeing certain patterns, and sometimes it's easy to think that it's the same if you just do it in your head. But I find, maybe it's just because I'm visual, that if I actually orient it differently on the page, then it will bring out new patterns in ways that I hadn't noticed before. So that's your takeaway methodology point for the for today. Alrighty, so I guess we'll plan to pick up on Thursday, try to answer what he found wrong with his pursuit of Chachma, and then try to go on to the next phases of the experiment. Alrighty.
Thank you.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.